Welcome, friends. Welcome back to the kitchen. So I've been doing a lot of research for the old cookbook show, going back through all of my old pre-1930s all the way back to the 1700s French cookbooks. I've been looking for the definitive coq au vin recipe, and so far it's been really elusive. There isn't mention of any recipe that I can find called coq au vin prior to like the 1950s. But I have found some really cool chicken recipes. And today's recipe is sort of a pastiche of a bunch of different things that I've found in my research. So I'm starting out here with some chicken thighs. And of course, they always started with a whole chicken and cut it up and jointed it. But today, chicken thighs were on sale at the grocery store, so we're gonna get chicken thighs. I'm salt and peppering both sides, seasoning them really well. Now, I'm gonna heat up this heavy pan here, and I'm gonna hit it with a little bit of oil, and we're gonna get that hot. I'm gonna take the chicken, and I'm gonna dredge it in this flour, and we're just gonna coat the outside with flour. That's gonna help crust the chicken a little bit. It's also going to help build a little bit of a thickening agent in the bottom of the pan for later in the recipe. Okay, just coat it on all sides. You don't have to be over the top crazy with getting it coated. And I think I'll put these three into the frying pan and get them started. The oil could have been a little bit hotter. It'll be fine. We'll be okay. Now, like I said, as I go back through the old cookbooks, I don't see a recipe that conforms to our vision of what the classic coq au vin is. That presentation that's been drilled into our head since the 1960s, that was made, you know, really popular by a certain American French chef. It just doesn't exist. But there are lots of recipes like this one that is braised chicken in a combination of wine and vinegar, or a combination of vinegar and verjus, or just vinegar. And there's a couple of recipes from very early on in the 1700s, and I think one of them is what I'm going to do. And it calls for wings, just wings, and it doesn't say which bird to get them from. It just says wings, in Champagne. And the funny thing is, Champagne in the 1700s is not what we think it was. It's not what today we would consider Champagne. So I think that's going to be a very interesting recipe. Okay, the chicken's got a little bit of brown on it. The bottom of the pan's got a little bit of browning on it as well. So in goes some diced shallots. And I'm going to crush in a couple of garlic cloves. And we'll get those in the bottom of the pan. And we just want to fry those until they start to soften a little bit, and that doesn't take very long. You don't want the garlic to get bitter. Next in is a little bit of tomato paste, and I'll just plop that into the middle. And we'll just stir that around a little bit just to start to caramelize the tomatoes somewhat in the bottom of the pan. And I don't want to overemphasize that step. A lot of people really spend too much time telling you how important this is. It's important, but it's not that important. Next in, I've got a couple of diced Roma tomatoes. I'm just going to pop those in. I have some chicken stock. Put that in the bottom. This is a braised dish, by the way. If you haven't figured that out already, we're doing a bit of braising here. Next in is some red wine vinegar. You could use white wine vinegar if you wanted. You could use pretty much any vinegar that you want to use. I happen to have red wine vinegar, and ideally, I would match a little bit of red wine to put in the pot at the same time. But I don't have red wine. I've got a little dribble of white wine, and this is, in fact, is a Riesling. Probably not the right wine at all, but it's what I've got. It's what's going in the pan. So we're going to bring this up to a simmer, which shouldn't take very long. This is going to give me a chance to talk about our spices that we have here. So I have tarragon, savory, thyme, marjoram, and oregano, and I'm just going to mix those all together. And the eagle-eyed amongst you are going to be screaming at home, isn't that just herbe de Provence? Why, yes, it is. Thank you for noticing. It is essentially herb de Provence. Sometimes herb de Provence has a bunch of different things in it, but essentially it's this mixture. So we're just going to sprinkle that on top. And then there's one last sort of optional ingredient, and that is honey or some kind of sweetener. I'm going to put in this buckwheat honey. The sweetness doesn't really bring sweetness to the dish. It just cuts back on some of that acidity a little bit. Makes the whole thing a little bit more pleasant. So don't go overboard. I'm putting in maybe a teaspoon, teaspoon and a half. Use a honey that you like. I'm going to put that in. I'm going to give this a little bit of a stir to get the flavors all the way through everywhere. And then I'm going to put the cover on this and let it simmer covered for 15-20 minutes. And then I'll take the lid off and cook it uncovered for about 25 minutes more. Okay, these are done. So we'll get one out of the pan. It smells fabulous.
Hey Glenn. Hey
Jules.
friends, it does smell fabulous.
I'm going to get a little bit of sauce to go on top.
Okay.
Maybe grab a couple of
I
forks.
was going to say, you might need some forks.
A couple of forks. So there's quite a bit of sauce here, and you can thicken the sauce up if you want. You can put in like a little beurre manier and make it a really thick sauce. Go great over potatoes. Go great over rice.
Is there any cream in the sauce?
There's no cream in the sauce. Cream in the sauce would be great, although none of the historical recipes have cream in the sauce. But since we didn't actually make an actual historical recipe today.
What?
No, it's just a pastiche of a whole bunch of different recipes.
Okay. So it looks pretty good inside.
Smells wonderful. I've got an idea in my head of what it smells like to me.
Is there vinegar in it?
There's vinegar in it.
Okay, so
yeah.
there's a tartness to the smell that is clear.
Yeah. Yeah, it is pretty heavily vinegared, so I'll get a little bit of sauce there. Oh, it's really good. That sauce
It's got a
is
nice
really
flavor.
good.
It's of course it's moist, of course.
Yeah.
Because
Well, it's a braised chicken thigh.
yeah,
that sauce.
I'm curious about that. So you didn't get me a spoon though.
Oh, did you want a spoon?
Just saying. Thanks, Glenn. I appreciate that. How hot is it?
It's pan hot,
Okay.
but the sauce is great.
Oh, there you go.
So, to Julie's point, you could thicken it with a beurre manier, but you could put a little cream in there.
And that would actually take away some of that acidification. Sorry, the acid flavor.
A little bit of the acid flavor.
When
yeah.
you're eating just the sauce, you can.
Yeah. I think that's a winner. And that comes together really quickly. Like, it did not take long at all to get that in the pan and get it cooking.
Well, conveniently.
It's dinner time. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.